Hello, this is Kinninigan from RagingReptilian.com. I'm about to show you some real quote-unquote fake news in this article. It originates actually from around the 1730s, but I just so happen to have a real newspaper article from 1909 seeing an incident of a Snallygaster's reign. And what is the Snallygaster? Well, hide your sheep and hide your wife. Snallygasters on the rain tonight. Yes, you can't make this up. And this article actually hits a little close to home for me. One, it involves a cryptozoological animal that I've already covered quite often. In a nutshell, it's I've already made a video on this creature. Two, this happens in my part of the United States, involving New Jersey, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And three, it involves German immigrants. Snallygaster is actually German slang. We'll get into the meaning of that in a second. But, and my father was German, my mother's Irish. Well, I'm kind of like a Euro-mutt, but mainly German and Irish. And, yeah. Century-old fake news. Terrorized citizens of Maryland, but the creature may be real. And it was real. What you are looking at is the griffin. There's a few names for this mythological creature throughout history. I love the term, same soup, different bowl. But yes, we are talking about the same creature. I also happen to know before 1909, when this newspaper article was printed, there was a creature like this, according to Indian mythology, that went as the Thunderbird. And this is, in a rough idea, this is the creature here. And it may look very familiar now. The same type of creature we can find griffin. Now, it's not exactly a griffin. A griffin has a body of a lion and the head of an eagle and wings like a bird. However, this, for all intents and purposes, is more or less like a large flying reptile. There have even been more modern reports in places of West Virginia, and I actually seen that on Monster Hunters. I know you might think that show, well, that really could be the fake news, that show, but a lot of times you got to take this mythology, and when you have it going all across the planet, the German people called it the Snallygaster. I kind of like the name. Definitely, and look, the Harry Potter wiki. This creature, which was featured in Harry Potter of all movies. Yeah, let's not go there. Oh, there was so much symbolism in Harry Potter. That's a video all in itself. That was basically, but I like the name Snallygaster. So I'm going to read this to you, and we'll talk a little bit about the mythology of the griffin. It's my belief that there were probably more, this is just another creature that's been buried up in history that probably did at one time, did exist. And we're even going to look at, of all things, we have a newspaper article. We have mythology around the creature going all the way back to the 1730s. A newspaper article reprinted in 1909. That's why I got the title Fake News, because, yeah, this wasn't, fake news is like the hot new term today, right? Back in 1909, when they printed this article, it terrorized people. That's why I was joking around about, hide your sheep and hide your wife. Snallygaster's coming out tonight. Yeah, people, they formed, and it also involves one of our presidents who formed a hunting party. So let's read about this. I'll leave this article in the description. The Snallygaster is a mysterious unknown cryptid that is said to look like a dragon. The legend of the beast originated with German immigrants that settled in Frederick County in central Maryland. Maryland is a mid-Atlantic state that's defined by its abundant waterways and coastlines on the Chesapeake Bay and Atlantic Ocean. It is a neighboring state of west of New Jersey. It's not west of New Jersey, it's actually south. I'm west of New Jersey, Philadelphia. The history of Germans in Baltimore began in the 17th century. This area was first settled by German immigrants beginning in the 1730s. The dragon-like beast allegedly inhabited the wooded hills surrounding Washington and Frederick counties in the state of Maryland, USA. And it was in 1909, so we know it wasn't Hillary Clinton. She didn't make it to Washington till later. Snallygaster Gate. Uh-oh. What are we going to do now, right? The etymology of Snallygaster is actually a mispronunciation of the German word Schnellgeister, which in itself a corruption of the German term Schnelliggeist, or quick spirit. The German immigrants were said to have a morbid fear of it. German immigrants were known to paint red hexes on their barns to ward off evil spirits, and they followed the same tradition when they arrived in Pennsylvania and Maryland. Hence why I said this comes pretty close to home for me. What does the Snallygaster look like? There is some historical information about the Snallygaster and one of its stranger gray area cryptozoological creatures in the history of the United States. The eyewitnesses who purportedly saw it generally described the monster as a dragon-like reptile with huge wings, a large beak, and sharp claws, specifically sharp claws like steel hooks. Reportedly, this creature made screeching noises as loud as a train whistle and had a taste for human blood. Sightings. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, the monster caused a sensation in Frederick County, Maryland. Jason Burns, a Snallygaster researcher, wrote an essay on the creature based upon old historical newspaper articles about it. The old newspapers gave better information on its appearance, describing it as a blood-sucking dragon-like beast with wings, claws, tentacles, fur, horns, and a long reptilian tail. It is said to look like a green dragon with scales and wings. Now we obviously know. Okay, the descriptions, if you did see a bird or anything flying this large, I can understand that we didn't have the flow of information like we do today with the internet, and people would have. So yeah, the description, everything from tentacles to claws to wings to furs, things starting to sound like a little like Cthulhu now, but it's not. And the Thunderbird is very real. And that comes from Indian mythology from this country before we came here and before the German immigrants came here. So it's definitely this is why the article's of very high interest to me. It sounds like it was centralized in 1909, but was rooted in real mythology that came back all the way back from the 1730s. Another one right here. It apparently had a horrible sulfuric smell and blood-curdling roar. Now I can understand this. One of my favorite things to do in my free time when I'm not watching science fiction is nature documentaries, and an animal that could produce a screech like that, like an eagle, you've heard there's a predator uses that kind of screeching as an advantage. If it's swooping down on you and it can make a high-pitched sound, it can literally stun you for a few seconds, and that few seconds is all it needs to swoop down and grab you up and pick you up in the air. Now this depiction here with the tentacles, come on, what is this, an octopus mixed with, yeah, this is a little, and it's picking up a cow, isn't that cute? This is what happened to our abducted cows. It wasn't aliens, it was a Snallygaster, right? Well, anyway. Yeah, and then it gets interesting because that looks Mayan right here. Yeah, we have some Mayan mythology. Or that's Native American, but Native American and Mayan around this country, even stuff I shown with the Serpent Mound and the Hopewell and the Dinas, a lot of the you see a lot of the similarities in their art, and so I can definitely tell that's, definitely Native Indian, and that was their depiction of it there. The earliest stories came that this monster sucked on the blood of its victims. A group of lumberjacks claimed to have come upon one of the creature's nests, which was perched off a high cliff and contained an egg big enough to hatch a horse. Older stories about the Snallygaster said it lived in caves. Many of these old accounts describe a foreboding scenario of a terrifying flying monster diving like a predator, attacking from the skies, and snatching up children and livestock. This is exactly what the Thunderbird was said to have done to many Native American tribal oral folk tales that have been handed down from generation to generation. Kenny knows his stuff. I know about the Thunderbird. Fake news. Weeks after the Jersey Devils' visit to New Jersey in 1909, reports started coming in saying that people had seen the Snallygaster flying monster in Frederick County in early February 1909. The Cumberland Evening Times reported the first sighting of the cryptid in Middletown in 1909. The story was also carried predominantly in Middletown's Valley Register, a weekly newspaper, for about a month. In the early issues, the flying beast seemed to be everywhere: New Jersey, West Virginia, and Ohio. Allegedly, it created a stir in New Jersey, where its footprints were first discovered in snow. The Snallygaster story was kicked off by the front page banner of the Middletown Valley Register on February 12, 1909. It was a sensational story, hot off the press, but it was a fake story. The publisher and editor of the Middletown Valley Register, George C. Roderick, and journalist named Ralph S. Wolfe, revived the Snallygaster story to boost circulation of their newspaper with a series of terrifying articles about the creature that are said to have even caught the attention of Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah, and you think the fake news was bad today? Imagine terrifying a nation over it, Thomas C. Harborough of Casstown, Ohio, wrote a letter to the Valley Register in early 1909, telling of a strange beast that flew over him making terrible screeching noises, and mentioned that it was coming in their direction. Harborough described it as having 2 huge wings, a large horny head, and a tail 20 feet long. Harborough wrote under various pseudonyms as well as under his own name. However, it turns out that Harborough was a personal friend of Roderick, and was born and raised in Middletown, Maryland, making this another fake story. Fooling a president. A great deal of publicity surrounded the string of appearances, and then the Smithsonian Institution offered a $100,000 reward for the beast. We're going to talk about that in a second. The Smithsonian? Yeah, why are they getting involved here? Roderick and Wolfe helped fan the flames to spread interest in their story, and they also pleaded their readers to remain calm. News of the attacks grew, which got attention of the White House. The Snallygaster rampage was so prolific and terrifying that it attracted the attention of President Theodore Roosevelt, who allegedly planned to kill and mount the beast for display in the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. President Theodore Roosevelt reportedly considered postponing an African safari to personally hunt down the beast. Soon others jumped on the Snallygaster bandwagon. The Baltimore Sun published articles, as did the Washington Post. As scrutiny increased, more pressure came to catch or photograph the monster. That's Theodore Roosevelt right there, the Badlands Hunter. Now that's a real president right there. They don't make him like that anymore, huh? I mean, he's got a dirk in his belt. He's got a rifle. Supposedly, National Geographic was preparing an expedition to capture it on film. The notoriety lasted for nearly 30 years until the fanfare of the fake lore quietly died out, perhaps because of the heat from the White House for scaring the public with fake stories. But the creature was still being seen occasionally by people whose stories helped keep the legend of the Snallygaster alive. I'm trying not to laugh here because it mimics so much on what's going on in our current political arena with quote-unquote fake news and presidents. But back then we had a president, he was going to go hunt this down, Now we get demonetized for fake news. Back then, the president was like, well, if this thing's real, I'm going to kill it and mount it, Wish they would do that with some of the quote-unquote other fake news going on here and find out if it's real or not. But there's stuff being done, don't worry. More stories emerge. The Snallygaster was said to have been seen flying over South Mountain from Middletown and was first seen by Charles F. Main in the vicinity of Braddock Heights. Mr. Maine was a Middletown resident and ice cream entrepreneur. Maine claims that he spotted the creature in November 1932, 23 years after the first sighting, when he was returning to Middletown from Frederick early one morning. Mann said he saw the creature flying no more than 25 feet from the ground. He said its wingspread appeared to be 12 to 14 feet. At times it threw out long streamer-like arms similar to an octopus, but it would draw them in again. Perhaps it had an octopus in its mouth. Now that's very possible, because it was sighted near the coastlines, near the ocean. That's very believable. And there's even cases I know where octopi or octopus, whatever, will actually go on the beach during high tide and get stranded sometimes, and they're on the beach. And there's been stories of people finding octopus stranded on the beach and releasing them back into the water, and like the octopus thanking them. So that's kind of believable. This is a little far-fetched here. We don't have octopus that big on the East Coast. The largest one is the Pacific octopus, obviously on the Pacific Ocean, but still, could have been carrying an octopus that it either swooped up out of the water, probably ate fish too, and seafood. The Snallygaster, he added, changed color several times, first appearing as black and then white. If the story was really true, the only thing that I can imagine is that it was black and glistening in the sun. Earlier sightings were reported in Maryland newspapers going as far back as 1906, when one was seen near Frederick. In 1948, the Snallygaster was seen again, soaring above the spires of Westminster, Maryland, searching for answers. Searching for answers, the best solution to resolve the identity of the Snallygaster is the examination of the oral history of Native American legends. The description that Jason Burns has mentioned helps identify the creature by saying it has long tail and horns, which matches the description of the Mishi Peshu and the Paesa. Now that was the one I actually made a video about, which I now believe to be the same creature. The Michi Peshu was called the underwater panther, but horned serpents appear in the oral history of numerous Native American cultures. And that's actually some Native American depictions of it. They referred to it as a fierce underwater panther, named in their native Ojibwe language as Mishu Peshu. It is one of the most important of several mythological water beings among many indigenous peoples in northeastern woodlands and Great Lakes region, particularly among the Anishinaabe tribe. And here we actually have a petroglyph of it. Very interesting, huh? That is in Ontario, Canada, of all places. So it sounds like they were spread out all throughout North America, huh? The legend of the Paesa comes from the Father Marquette and Louis Jolette expedition down the Mississippi River on May 17, 1673. The Menominee Indians endeavored to dissuade them from their enterprise, saying that their ferocious tribes on the great river, some of whom are at war and would kill any stranger, and also saying that horrible monsters and demons would endanger their lives. They told Marquette that the river was very dangerous when one does not know where there are difficult places, and it was full of horrible monsters, which devoured men and canoes together, that there was even a demon heard from a vast distance, which barred the way and swallowed up all who ventured to approach it. And finally they said that the heat was so excessive in that area that it would inevitably cause death. Moreover, there was the scary demon Paesa bird, a Native American dragon depicted on one of the two murals painted by Native Americans on bluffs above the Mississippi River. Comparing the Mishu Peshu and Paesa shows remarkable similarities, and the physical features of these two monsters aptly applies to the description of the Snallygaster as well. My humble opinion is that the Snallygaster is real, and that's the Mishu Peshu Paesa. And I believe it's real as well. Now, I wanted to talk that $100,000 reward by the Smithsonian to prove this was real. That was a lot of money back then. Yeah, that was a heck of a lot of money in 1909. Did they actually eventually kill all these creatures and secretly hunt them down and hide them in the Smithsonian basement, just like the giants and the Bigfoots that they cover up that were in this country? It's very possible. And the only reason why we're getting the reports from the German immigrants in the 1730s, remember, we didn't start expanding to the west until the gold rush, and you basically have the history of the United States. One of the biggest hurdles was getting through the Appalachian Mountains. And then once they got through the Appalachian Mountains, they had to get through the Colorado Rockies. And then eventually they made it to California. And going through all these areas, when they expanded out west, they came across a lot of these mythologies, everything from giants to Bigfoot. And the Snallygaster, or well, they called it the Thunderbird also. But yes, I believe these creatures were real, and they did inhabit this place at one time, probably hunted down all by now. And I find it amazing too that Teddy Roosevelt was even going to go hunt this thing. Anyway, I'll leave this link in the description. I thought you might enjoy this because it ties in with a lot of the mythology I do cover, especially revolving the griffin, which is another animal that can be traced back and depicted going all the way back to Babylon, of all places. Any questions or comments, leave them in the description. Let me know what you think about Snallygaster Gate and the old school fake news. Any questions or comments, leave them below. Until we speak again, this is Kinninigan, and take care.